Hey Slayers, for the month of February, we are rewinding to the series Obedience is My Responsibility. You're listening to the Slaying Self-Doubt podcast with Coach Felicia, where we empower Black women to overcome their doubts, fears, and insecurities in order to give birth to their God-given purpose. Join me and sometimes some of my friends on our journey as we remind you that you are not alone. I'm Felicia Wallace, and together we will find our fears and slay them. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Slaying Self-Doubt podcast. It's your girl Felicia Wallace. Welcome to all the new and the continued listeners. Y'all just keep showing up. So last week when I recorded this, it was like the middle of the week. But I was like, we need I can't wait. We almost at 26,000 downloads. And then like the next day, like for real. And I was off by like a couple of hundred. So it was like, what the crap? So y'all just keep showing up. I'm grateful that you have decided to stay on this journey with me. I'm grateful for every share, every repost, every donation. I truly appreciate it. And so just thank y'all. So this week was really busy. It was a full week, hence I am recording this on Monday because some stuff had to get pushed back. All in all, it was a great week, but it just was a lot. So first thing was that last week was Dope Dads Week. I think I have mentioned it on here before, but if not, I'll let you know. So we have myself, my sister, and my cousin decided about 4 years ago that we wanted to honor our husbands for a whole week leading up until Father's Day. And it really came from just having conversations with them about them feeling like the outside world, right, doesn't really value fathers. And, it's a day that's just like, okay, let them cook or let them grill or get them stuff from Home Depot or Lowe's, like stuff that just seems like it's, they're supposed to work. Whereas like Mother's Day, it's like, oh, honor her and support her and self-care and all these different things. And, even in their joking, like we took it seriously and was like, okay, what can we do differently? So we created Dope Dads Week, where we just honor them for 7 days straight from the Sunday before leading up until actual Father's Day. And we give them gifts for 7 days straight. So like outside of this year, previously we'd done like a cookout where everybody comes together on the Sunday before Father's Day. And that's kind of how we started. And then from that Monday until Sunday, we give a gift. And so each of us decide that whatever the theme is, what we're going to do for our husbands. And then every day we give them a gift with a note. And we just honor them. Like sometimes it's very small stuff. It could be like this year, my stuff for my husband was the fact that he loves gambling. He hasn't been able to do it since the pandemic. So he's working his way up to it. But, I got him like some scratch offs and I got him like a little bingo game, something that we could do together as a family because we actually like playing board games. I got him a poker set because he wants to learn how to play poker. Like, it's just like little things that otherwise he wouldn't think about, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I just kind of paid attention and then I just got him some things that he would like, but it's like an everyday thing that like every day he wakes up and there's something new. So this morning when he got in from work, he was very much so appreciative and he just was like, I was thinking about it all week. Like, I just can't believe you just keep doing this. And he was just like, I just love you. And I was like, you're welcome. So it warms my heart to know that he is, even outside of this week, we honor him, but just for him to be able to feel that for 7 days straight is a wonderful thing. Speaking of my sister and my cousin, we just ended our first season of the Girl Who Said That podcast. So make sure you go check that out. Our last episode actually dropped on Father's Day. So yesterday, and we had the guys on for a guest appearance. So that will be, y'all should definitely go listen to that right after you listen to this episode. But it was definitely, it was a great conversation. So we did that. And then on Thursday, if you guys missed it, I did another IG Live with Keeley Carter. And we talked about, we're still in this series of Obedience is My Responsibility. And we talked about trusting God. And so if you didn't catch the replay, it will be in the show notes. One of the biggest things that happened this weekend that I definitely am grateful to have been a part of is that my parents celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary. And that is just, it's a beautiful thing to just be able to just witness Black love. My parents are, I said this yesterday. I said it, during the ceremony, or like their presence is unmatched. Anybody who has ever met my parents, like when you say people are goals, like no, for real. Like it's not just about their marriage. It's about how they are together. It's about the way they love each other. It's about the way they love on the people that surround them. Like there is not, even if people try to say anything negative about them, don't nobody believe that. Like they just like, you can't be talking about Millie and Phil. But they just compliment each other so well. They are soulmates, like legit. And they wrote their own vows. And me and my sister was up there all teary-eyed. We kind of officiated the whole thing. And it was just beautiful to just watch them. And I'm just grateful that I had that as an example. And I just pray that I just pray for them to have 40 more. I said that yesterday, and my father was like, "You know how old I be in 40 years?" I was like, okay, you want 20 more?" Like, I'm not really sure what you want me to say. But it was a blessing. And so I was just grateful to be able to be a part of it, be there, and just witness that. It was a beautiful day too. Um, yeah, so before we hop into it, just remembering you guys that the Slaying Self Doubt merch is back. You can go to the website, get your t-shirts, your sweatshirts, they get a tote bag, get a cup. We got some tank tops for the summertime. You can use that, wear it when you're exercising or stuff like that. So definitely go to the website and check it out. So like I said earlier, we are still in this series of Obedience is My Responsibility. I don't know about y'all, but this has really been stretching me. It has shown me that there's some places where I'm still lacking faith and trust in my life and trust in God, because I still want to do things my way. And the one thing that I'm getting out of this for myself is really just that I have to. This is all a process, and I literally have to practice this every single day. And I really do hope that something is resonating with you all. And again, I would love to hear if it is. And so whether it's on the lives or on the post for this episode, I would just love to hear from you. So definitely come on over to the Instagram and talk to your girl. So as a reminder, the definition of obedience from Holman's Illustrated Bible Dictionary is to hear God's word and act accordingly. Biblical obedience to God means to hear, trust, submit, and surrender to God and his word. And we've already talked about hearing from God, trusting God. And so today we're going to talk about submitting to God and his word. So James 4 says, therefore submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Now, when I first read that, I was just like, okay, I see why it's in here, because I was, looking like, okay, what does the Bible say about submission? What does the Bible say? And so let me start out here, though. A lot of times when we hear about submission, it is almost always exclusively about marriage, right? And it's always a negative connotation about submit. I ain't submitting to no man, this, and the third, blah, blah, blah. And I get it. Trust me, sis. Trust me, sis. I get it. I understand the negative connotation to it because it sounds like we're like oppressed, right? And as a side note of this, I've been watching The Handmaid's Tale, and just the way they distort the Bible to for their gain and to like oppress women is ridiculous. So I totally get it. However, when you really read it, it even in the context of marriage, it says that the husband first has to submit to God, and then the wife submits to the husband. So if your husband is not under God's leadership, then really you're submitting to you, like that is the wrong order. So it's not like to a person, it really is to God. But in this context, we're talking about obedience for ourselves individually, male or female, submitting to God. So as I read it, I was like, you know what? Let me go up. Let me go up a verse, right? And so James 4:6 says, but he gives greater grace. Therefore, he says, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. 7 says, therefore submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And so when we are taught, when we're in actually in that chapter of James, they're just talking about God's will and versus yours, right? And what it is that you need to do to really be in his will. And that is what we're talking about in obedience. In order into you're submitting to God, you're submitting to him, his word, and his will, right? And so I wanted to give you 3 ways to practice submitting to God. The first thing is to humble yourself. Humble yourself. Now, a lot of times people hear that, and people be like, "Oh, if you say you humble, you're not humble, right? You're proud." I think that there's a difference between like saying I'm a humble person, right, all the time versus the act of humility, right? And so when we're talking about humbling ourselves to God, it is knowing that he is greater than you. It is knowing that his will is greater than your will. It is knowing that he knows better than you do. It is knowing that you cannot do this without him. I just that part of it, because I think even when we talked last week about trusting, and one of the ways of trusting God is to release control, right? The reason why we have control, or we have the illusion of control, as I've heard plenty pastors say, is because we think that we can do a better job than him. We think that we're greater than him. We think we have more power than him. Not in the context of like we really do believe it, but we think in this situation, I can help God out. And the reality is you can't. We can't help him. He don't need your help. He don't want your help. He don't need nothing from you except for your obedience. And so in order for you to be able to truly be obedient and submit to him, you have to understand that his will is greater than you. And that's going to require some things from you to be able to just really be in that space of like, okay, this is not mine. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Even when we talked about, like when I always say about this, slaying self-doubt, right? I did not want this. It wasn't anything that I asked for. It wasn't what I prayed for. I didn't wish for this. I didn't envision it. I didn't think that this is what I was supposed to be doing. However, guess what? God's will shows up. And so in the beginning of this, I was like, nah, Slim, you got it. Like you give it to somebody else, I'm good, right? But then when I really was like, okay, it kept happening, because remember we are talking about trusting last week and how you'll get promptings when God is asking you to trust him. And when it kept coming up, I was just like, okay, I guess we're doing this. And with that happening, I literally had to put myself in a place of like, okay, if this is what God is asking me to do, I had to submit to what that was. And so that meant things were going to be different, right? That means that I had to do things differently. That means that I had to show up differently. As I was changing and as I was walking into this slaying self-doubt journey, I've told y'all before, I had to show up differently at work. I had to show up differently in my marriage. I had to show up differently as a parent. I had to show up differently for myself. But it was all under the context of like, God, what do you want me to do? In my prayers and in my journals, there are times where I have to say, God, show me me, show me me, show me what it is that I need to see, because it's not you hear it all the time. It's not my will, is yours. That is submission. That is literally saying it is your will. We all the time are saying, reciting, what's that, Jeremiah 29:11, like, for I know the plans that you have for me, the plans to prosper, like, and we believe that, right? It was like, well, God's plans for us is there, but are you really humbling yourself? Do you really believe that? Do you really think? Because if we did, then we wouldn't be having an issue with obedience, right? And again, remember, as we're talking about this, I'm talking to myself too, because y'all just already know. So the first step is to humble yourself, to knowing that God is greater than you, and that he gives greater grace, like throughout all the things. Like he's unmatched. He is unmatched. You cannot touch him. And listen, just sometimes you just gotta do what he says, right? The second thing is to ask for forgiveness. I think a lot of times, well, for me, I think that some of my obedience has been attached to guilt and shame and unforgiveness of myself, right? Because I feel like that maybe I wasn't doing the right things at first. Maybe I didn't have the right attitude. Maybe I didn't speak kind words to other people. Maybe I didn't. I just wasn't right, like in my mind, right? And so I think that a lot of times that stops us from being obedient because we feel like we're unworthy, right? We feel like we don't deserve this will that God gives, and we don't deserve the gifts that He wants to give us. And so what we do is we just try to ignore it, right? And I think that when you are walking in true obedience, you have to come to God in a part of that humbling yourself, and that part of in all the things that we've talked about, being open and kind of being vulnerable and having that relationship with Him, right? From the very first episode of this series. You got to be able to come to Him in truth. And so there was a part of me that had to come to Him and say on more than one occasion, God, like, I don't know if this is what you really want me to do. I don't know if I'm being a good wife. I don't know if I'm being a good mother. I don't know if I'm being a good sister, a good employee. Again, show me. What do I have to do? And then, God, forgive me for my unforgiveness, forgive me for my attitude, forgive me for my lack of integrity, my lack of trustworthiness, my forgive me for my sinful nature. Like, He's not asking us to be perfect, He's asking us to be aware and to do different. When we talk about when your kids come to you and they are you love them, like you love your kids no matter what. My kids, I can't think of legit. I can't think of anything that they could do that would make me not love them. Would I be disappointed? Yes. Would I be upset if something happened or they did something that wasn't right or broke the law? Yes, I would be upset. But there is literally absolutely nothing that they could do that would stop me from loving them. And when they come to me and they say, "Mommy, I messed up," right? Guess what? Okay. I'm going to give you grace because I'm not perfect, right? Like, so clearly I can't take, I'm not, there are lessons that have to be learned, but you have to have changed behavior, right? But coming to God and asking Him for forgiveness puts you in a place of openness, puts you in a place of your posture is different, right? Because now you're giving yourself the opportunity for God to pour into you, because that burden of unforgiveness that we feel in our hearts and we feel in our souls prevents us from having a relationship, because somewhere down the line we felt like he not gonna forgive me. That's not what's gonna happen. Like, I'm not gonna be forgiven. It's not. He already died for our sins. He already forgave us. Like, legit, that is what salvation is. And even in your mess ups, He knows that, right? He knows that we're going to mess up. He is all knowing. He knows all the things. He wants you, me, us to understand that He is greater than us. He knows all these things, but He still needs you to be vulnerable. He still needs you to open up. He still needs you to come to Him. And so in asking for forgiveness allows that to happen. It allows for us to be able to be in a place to say, God, I know that I could do better. I know that I should be doing better. I know that, I could be in a different place. I know that, I should have done something differently. I know I knew better than that. I shouldn't have gone down that way. I shouldn't have went out that night. I shouldn't have done the things that I shouldn't have lied. I shouldn't have done this. And you allow Him to just forgive you. Remember earlier I said He gives greater grace. Grace is exactly, we don't deserve His grace. There's nothing you can't transformations, or Pastor Mike did a series on grace, and I think it's called the flood of grace or something like that. If I'll find it and put it in the show notes. But he said that it is the unmerited, like, there's nothing you can do. You legit can't do anything. You can't earn God's grace. He gives it willingly and freely. He continues to do that for us. And so when you understand that, and when you are being in that place of being able to have a relationship with him and being able to ask for forgiveness, push you in a better place to be able to be obedient, because once you feel that forgiveness, you feel that closeness with him. And so that would be step two, is to ask for forgiveness. And then the third thing is saying no. No is a complete sentence. Now, recently we hear people saying that, for self care, for your mental state, of saying no to people, like, no, I can't do this. No, I can't do that. Whatever the case may be, so that you're at peace. In this case, I would say, within being obedient and submitting to God, is saying no to things that are not of God, that are in direct uh correlation with what God is calling you to do, right? So I shared this story I won't hear, and probably on a live, but when I thought of this, I was like, this is exactly what it was, right? So a couple of years ago, or like 2 years ago, God had called me to stop drinking. And it wasn't that I was like drunk every day, but I was off work, right? I left my job. Like, I'm like, I'm on a permanent vacation out here. Like, what's up? Like, we having mimosas in the morning, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are we doing? But I kept feeling it. I would be like on my way to dropping my son off at school, and it would be like that same thing. I remember telling people, like, I keep feeling like this prompting to like fast from drinking, and I don't know why, right? And so it might have been like early October. Like, I no, it was happening, and then finally early October. It might have been October 1st, I think. I was like, all right, fine. I'm not going to do it. So I'm just going to not drink. So I go to the Lord. I said, well, how long? How long are we doing this? Maybe it was September. I think it was September. It was September, actually. So I was like, how long are we doing this? I got no answer, right? But at that point, I was like, I had already taken the step of faith, right? And left my job. So I had, I heard him, I trusted him, and now we're in the submitting part, and I'm like, so you want me to do what now? Like, what does that have to do with anything? I don't even really understand. So I think it was after Labor Day, I went ahead and I was like, okay, I'm not going to drink. That same year, my girlfriends and I had decided we were going to go to homecoming, and we were starting to finalize plans and get things together. And I kept feeling this tug, like, we were talking about it, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, if I go, I know I'm a drink, and this, that, and the third. And I had to say no. Like, I literally couldn't do anything else. It was like, what else was I going to do? I could have gone. Now, could I have gone? I could have. If I had gone, what would have happened? I would have probably drank, right? And I probably would have been like, oh, Lord, I'm sorry. Same thing I've always done, right? Like, please forgive me. I'm sorry. In this case, I knew that I was on a different path. I knew that God was preparing me for something. And I was so connected to him at that time that I was like, I can't chance it. And so I remember telling my friends, and the difficulty part in this situation is I could have just said no, right? Could have. I could have just said, y'all ain't gonna be able to go. I just left my job. I could have said whatever I wanted to say, right? But instead, I said no, and I told the truth. I said, God called me to fast from alcohol. And I know that if I go to homecoming, that's exactly what we're gonna do. And I I'm not willing to change that. I don't even want to go and risk. I don't want to be tempted, and I don't want to risk drinking and then having to ask for forgiveness. Right now, in the space that I'm in, I have to remain obedient. Like, legit, I have to. And I was nervous because, sometimes when you are in community with friends and family, everybody isn't comfortable sharing their faith like fully, like to that extent, or they aren't comfortable. Like, we know we all believe, but we don't have like real deep conversations about it. But in that moment, every single one of them was like, I support you. let us know, when we get back, what we going to do so that we can make sure that we have make sure that we have an alcohol free event so that we can just support you in that space. And I felt at peace. I was already at peace with my decision, but I felt even more at peace because I was like, I actually did it, right? Like I said no to a thing I really, really wanted to do and I knew was a test, right? And so for me, I felt like I passed that test. And I went on. So I think that year I fasted from alcohol all the way up until I think it was New Year's, like into the new year, right? And I got so much clarity, I got so much peace. And it was afterwards that I said, okay, God, I knew why you needed me to do that. Number one, I needed to be focused on the things I need to be focused on during that season, but also that for me, it was a distraction. Like alcohol had become a distraction of like, if you drinking, you get tired and then you be like, I don't feel like doing nothing. And then, here I am trying to, at this point, I'm creating a business and I'm trying to build this up. And, I was doing the podcast, but I, wasn't really. And this is when all the ideas came in of like having somebody be on the show, people be on the show and doing this, that, and the third, and like just getting in order. And I think God just needed that from me. And so for me, there are times where God is telling me, no, you can't do that because I need you to do this, right? And so one of the ways I try to pause before I do certain things or like, yeah, I verify. I ask for clarity. Like, God, is this of you? Is this from you? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? When I do, y'all hear me all the time on here. Like, if anybody is on this show or you see me with somebody else, it is about alignment. If God says no, I'm not doing it. One, because I know that this isn't mine. I don't own this vision. I don't own this dream. I don't own this idea. He does. And so if it is not from him, then I'm not doing it, period. And there have been times I've done stuff in my own will. I've done stuff and I've shared it on here that I've been out of order and nothing comes from it. Or I feel so frustrated about it because I'm just like, because I operated out of order, right? And things are just not, it doesn't go the way that it's supposed to. So, yeah, I mean, what I have learned, in doing this for the last 3 weeks is that obedience isn't easy. I'm just going to be honest. It is not easy to do because when we talk about overall, when we talk about being obedient, it's about a lot of things, right? You being obedient or, sometimes people use the word like disciplined or consistent. But it really is like really just doing it and understanding why you're doing it, right? And, being as though that I feel like that I personally have had a roller coaster of obedience. It is definitely something that when I'm in a space where I realize I'm being obedient and I'm doing it just like right now, there will be tests that will come up against you that will try you to be like, you ain't even really supposed to be doing this, or, you should stop, or whatever the case may be. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful every time that I'm obedient because God shows me something else. Every time that I'm obedient, he shows me something else. He opens another door because it's like a pathway, right? And so as I continue to remain obedient and do the things despite my fear, despite my discomfort, despite my nervousness and all of those other things, I'm still doing it. He's going to still show up. And as long as I continue to do that, he is going to honor my obedience. And so that is what I leave with you today is that God honors your obedience. He honors your obedience. And so in order for allow him to do that, allow him to continue to bless you, allow him to honor you by your obedience so that you can have what it is that he had for you. He has for you that passage of God knows the plans for you and the plans to prosper and not harm you. You still have work to do. You can't just sit around and not do nothing. You can't get these words or get these messages or get these things and just sit on it. He needs you to work. He needs you to trust him. He needs you to hear him. He needs you to submit to him. So I hope something resonated with you all today. Remember, we talked about submitting to God, and the 3 ways to practice submitting to God is to humble yourself, knowing that God is greater than you are, and knowing that you do not have any power. Period. Okay, you have the illusion of control. All right. The second thing is asking for forgiveness, releasing yourself of that guilt and that shame, and of the previous times that you've been disobedient or that you haven't lived up to your full potential. Go to him and ask him for forgiveness and allow him to cleanse you of that. Allow him to really allow him to put that peace over you where you can let that go. And then the last thing is saying no to things that are not of him. When you are walking in obedience, you can't do everything. You will not be the same person. You should even want to be the same person. When you are walking in obedience, you will come up against things that will test you and to test your obedience. And you have to be able to say no and affirm no and keep it moving. And, with that being said, God honors your obedience. And so you will still be blessed. He will continue to cover you. He will continue to protect you. And yeah, that's it. So as always, thank y'all for rocking with me. I told y'all earlier, I love talking to y'all in the comments on Instagram. So make sure that you comment, share, rate, and review. Follow me on Instagram if you're not already following me. If you are interested in booking a connection call with me to start your self-doubt journey, or if you are in a place where you really feel like you need somebody to just kind of help you get to some just clarity, right? Like coaching is something where it's about you, the client, not about me, the coach, but it really is about you and being able to understand this is where I am and this is what I'm trying to get to. It is not therapy. Therapy is thinking about going in your past and trying to figure out how'd you end up the way you are. Coaching is here I am today, and I want to be here in a year. And these are the goals that I plan to set for myself. And it really is me supporting and holding space for you and just being there with you along your journey. So if that's something that you are interested in, book a connection call with me. You can go to my website, www.feliciawallace.com, and you can schedule your appointment today. So thank y'all again. Until next week. See ya. All right, y'all, that's all for this week. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to share, subscribe, rate, and review. Remember to head over to Facebook and Instagram and follow me at Slaying Self Doubt. Oh, wait, don't forget, go to my YouTube channel and watch this episode, and remember to press the subscribe button. Until next week, see ya.